Hello and welcome to Future Focus. My name is Gregory Golda. Today on this podcast, we explore the cutting-edge trends shaping our world. Today we're diving into the intersection of AI and academia with very special guest Dr. Bill Yousman, an associate professor at Sacred Heart University's School of Communication, Media, and the Arts. Dr. Yousman is a leading voice in the study of media, ideology, and representation. His research spans racial portrayal in news, social media, and pop culture with a focus on how media both challenge and reinforce white supremacy. Dr. Yousman is a vocal advocate for media education and critical literacy. Join us as we explore how AI is transforming the way we think about media, identity, and power. Welcome, Dr. Yousman. Thank you for coming in.
Sure.
I wanted to get a general idea of what you're thinking is in terms of AI's use, misuse in the academic realm.
Okay.
So starting off with that, it seems that AI is, in many senses, considered a cheat machine.
Yeah.
It circumvents learning, it short circuits the process. Is there any way that we can look at the academic sphere and figure out how AI fits inside of it?
I think that there must be a way. I think it's so new and changing so fast. And it's in some manifestations, it's been around for a while, but all of a sudden there seems to be this flood once that these platforms and ways to access it have become more public, right? And have become free, right, and have become quickly integrated. You know, you open a PDF now, and there's like these AI like things like worked into it. I think that we are in the midst of a revolution, and you know, the historian Howard Zinn used to say, you can't be neutral on a moving train. And what he sort of meant by that was it's going to keep moving.
Yeah.
And I think he meant both that you have to sort of like figure out your own stand, but I also think he meant that, you know, we need some distance sometimes before we fully understand where everything is going. So I think there are ways, there will be ways to integrate it into higher ed without it completely and totally destroying what our real mission is, which is critical thinking, development of knowledge of the world, development of an ethical sense of being. Right now, my fear is that the way it's being used works against those things. And we haven't yet figured out how to make it complementary.
Right. In terms of critical thinking, AI could actually be asked to generate exercises to enhance critical thinking. It seems like AI is really only limited by our own imagination when it comes to its application.
I mean, it could, but like my response to that is, that's my job as a professor.
Right.
Like, I don't need to use a machine to come up with my course plans, my syllabus, my assignments, how I'm going to approach the curriculum, how I'm going to approach a syllabus, how I'm going to approach what I'm doing in class that day. I don't need AI to do that because in my case, that's what I've been doing for 30 years, right? And that's what my background is. And I don't think AI can ever really replace critical thinking on the part of professors or students because it's not actually a thinking machine. It's a trawling what's already out there and summarizing or aggregating machine. But we call it artificial intelligence. It's not really intelligence. The key word, I think we get too caught up on the intelligence word and we forget the artificial word.
Right.
It's not really intelligence.
It's a pattern replicator.
Yeah. And unfortunately, because it's based on trawling what's already out there, that means it's really prone to errors as well. Because when it goes randomly searching for, I did this thing where, as an experiment, I asked it to write a short bio of me. It's completely wrong, completely off. It gave me credit for books I hadn't written.
Oh, you just let it go wild on the internet and come back with all the information.
Yeah.
Got it.
Gave me credit for books I hadn't written, didn't give me credits for books I have written. It's just, right. Because it's out there fishing, and a lot of what is already on the internet is, can I say bullshit on this podcast?
Yes,
is it too late?
No.
Because I already said it.
I think we're good.
A lot of what is out there
seconds.
on the internet is bullshit. Yeah. So it's going to pull some good stuff in, but it's also going to pull a whole lot of bullshit in as well. And that's where I think it loses me in terms of enhancing critical thinking.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What's the biggest fear?
To me, the biggest fears are actually in some ways are they outside of education, or are they both in and out in like a Venn diagram? I have a lot of fears about it environmentally, right? Because it's a huge energy sucking, energy resource dependent endeavor. We got things happening where like Microsoft is buying the old 3 Mile Island site and getting it back up there again, just because there's such a demand, So I think there are very, very serious environmental questions. I think there are very, very serious issues, both in academia, but mostly so far outside of academia, about putting people out of work, and that a lot of people are just going to be phased out. And how do you have a society where 25-30% of the population are unemployed? That's a disastrous, apocalyptic kind of scenario. So those are my biggest fears. In higher education, it's more about, and I'm not going to say just students, but students, faculty, and staff and administrators relying on it as a replacement, relying upon it not as a tool, but as just a robot that will do your work for you. I don't want to grade robots. Like, I don't, if I give you something to write about, I don't want you to just plug that in to AI and then print it out and hand it to me. Yeah. Why are we doing that? What a waste of time.
You're in a place where they're generating it with AI. You're grading it with AI.
Yeah, it's like what? It's like what are we doing here? And I know I've already had that happen in some classes. I know I've had it happen with grad students. It's like, why are you here? Right. If you're just going to have it do that. So that's a fear. And then along with that is that the more people rely on AI to summarize readings instead of actually doing the reading, the more they rely on it to generate written content instead of thinking and generating the written content, the more they're dumbing themselves down. Developing these intellectual skills is just like developing muscles. Like, you have to use them, right? You have to work on them. You have to practice. Nobody would tell a baseball player, that you can become a good hitter without taking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of swings at fastballs, every week, right? Yeah. And so it's I worry about that we're going to be increasingly unable to do our own reading, unable to do our own thinking, unable to do our own writing.
after 2016's election, I got mad at I got mad at literature. I got mad at art. I got mad at satire because it didn't help. It didn't help in the critical analysis, and it didn't give us the skills as a nation to look at the options and say, something is really amiss here. How do we adjust it? And then why do we go for these impulsive people to lead us? And now I'm back at the same place where the election went the way it did. And I got mad at literature again. I got mad at satire. And I'm like, I keep falling for it. I think we can learn through analysis and through deep reading, things like that. And, it's like the ideal. It's why we got into what we do. And more it feels like so many people are abandoning those ideas. How do we bring that back? How do we make it work?
Yeah, I don't get mad at literature or the arts because I think that you take a novel like Huxley's Brave New World. I think Brave New World has so much to tell us about what we're living through right now. And this is not an original idea, right? I'm stealing this from Neil Postman, right? In Amusing Ourselves to Death, he tells us we were worried about Orwell's vision of dystopian control from the outside. We should have been worried about Huxley's vision of, embracing fun and pleasure to such an extent that we just become totally drugged out and passive, right? I think Brave New World can tell us a tremendous amount about the world right now. I think looking at Munch's The Scream, you want to know how I'm feeling right now? Look at that painting, right? But what I get mad at is how we respond educationally. So, and this is where I'm thinking of this. My kids are in their 20s now, but even just a few years ago when they were in high school, I was so distraught to hear that they were no longer reading full books. They were just reading excerpts, right? And so I remember in one of my kids, they were going to read The Great Gatsby, which is one of my favorite novels. And I think The Great Gatsby has a tremendous amount to tell us about wealth and carelessness and destruction. And I was excited about that, right? And then a little bit later, I was like, yeah, so what's going on with The Great Gatsby? And they said, oh, we're not doing that anymore. And I said, oh, you finished it? And they said, no, we didn't finish it. And I said, you didn't finish it? Yeah. No, we ran out of time. The teacher said we had to move on to something else, right? Yeah. And I'm thinking the whole point of The Great Gatsby is the ending. That's where everything comes together, right? What do you mean you didn't finish it? So that's what I'm mad at. I'm mad at how education is abandoning that type of thinking and engagement with the world and with culture because I've got to prep you for the standardized test that's coming. Right. That's where I get mad.
Right.
And I worry that AI is going to advance that rather than advance critical thinking, appreciation of culture, understanding of each other in the world.
More art, literature, and satire instead of getting mad at it.
I mean, that's where I'm at. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of how I feel, that right now, like, it can be a tremendous resource for us.
So, in the post-election reality that we're in, AI has been used to definitely steer people's opinions.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going?
Worse and worse and worse.
It'll get worse before it gets worse.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mention in terms of my fears, although it is one of them, AI-generated fake content. That's definitely a fear. I guess I don't think of that initially because it's been possible to create fake content for a long time now. What AI does is it de-skills it. Right.
Makes it democratic.
You need to be really good at Photoshop to come up with a plausible image of, Joe Biden eating a baby, or whatever, right? Now you could just like have somebody, you can have the machine do that for you, right? So that is one of my fears. And the reason I say worse is because I worry about how these tech industries are so anti-regulation and will fight tooth and nail, like to be able to do whatever they want without any intervention, any oversight whatsoever. And, with the coziness between Trump and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and a lot of these, big Silicon Valley figures, I think we're heading into an era when they will be completely unregulated. They will be given carte blanche to do whatever they want to make a profit. And that's why I fear it's going to get worse. And even as we're speaking, the technology has grown more sophisticated. And the more sophisticated the technology grows, the more difficult it's going to be to identify a fake image or a fake story or, that kind of thing.
For sure. And I think they're afraid probably to say that they don't want regulation because they don't know how to regulate AI. They don't really know how to put the brakes on it.
Yeah, that goes back to where we started, right? That it's so new and it's all developing so fast. And we need to kind of like chill for a minute and think about this. Even some people who have been developing those technologies have argued for taking a pause and doing some reflection. Yeah. But they're being pushed aside and overwhelmed by, this capitalist idea that you have to move full speed ahead, break things, to purely for profit.
Right. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been Future Focus. I'm Gregory Golda. I'd like to thank Dr. Yousman for joining us. Thank you, Bill. And I hope you enjoyed this chat about AI and education and the political environment.